Hi guys, we are back at the Finanza Portal, and today we will speak about, first of all, a little summary about the situation in Ukraine and how it originated, and then we will pass at the possible outcomes. So what will happen in Ukraine after the war has ended. So when everything started, maybe Russia had this plan to conquer Ukraine easily. So they had this so-called special military operation, and this operation had to last only a few days, with Russians welcomed by the people of Ukraine. And things did not go in this way, as you may notice by the news. Something else happened. Maybe something that Russia wasn't able to forecast. Well, of course, this is just speculation. I'm telling my thoughts and personal opinion, trying to do a little bit of reasoning, and then showing you the possible outcomes of the war in Ukraine, especially for Ukraine itself and its population. So maybe Russia hoped to create a pro-Moscow country and government near Europe, something that it's kind of similar to Belarus, for example. Moreover, Russia clearly states from ages that people from Ukraine are Russians, in fact, and that those territories are part of Russia itself. On the other side, many historians say that Kiev was, well, originally founded by Vikings and similar population coming from Sweden and the near countries in a territory that was later called as the Rus of Kiev. Then history says that after the invasions from Mongols from Central Asia, its power, so the power of Kiev, diminished, and in the same period, Moscow, which is east from Kiev, of course, began to increase its power. Oh, so this is the background, more or less, about the facts and the places that we are speaking about during these days. There's really a lot of news talking about Ukraine and Russia. It's the main topic after the like 2 years period going on with the pandemic. So, well, this is the background, the historical background. And starting from this, maybe Russia hoped in some sort of way to get an easy win against Ukraine. And as you may notice, it was a great miscalculation. Well, until now at least, we don't know what like Russia has for the future, some special weapons, special operations. Something special could happen, of course, but until now it's a great miscalculation and not a positive operation, at least as we see it from like the West, of course. So Ukrainians were able to regroup, especially around the figure of their president in the fight for independence. So this is a summary about the situation with a little bit of history, and then we can pass at the several outcomes on how the situation could finally evolve. Of course, this is just speculation, as I said before. It's very difficult, like, to forecast the future, especially when, like, the situations are like so difficult to predict. Nearly everything can happen. It's really complicated. I just try to like see it something that has happened in history before, with like different situations and different countries where Russia like went in and had like some history with those countries. And so we can start with our list. Well, first thing that is like certain is that Ukraine won't be Crimea 2014. So Crimea is considered like Ukraine. South of it, it's near the sea. It's a peninsula, more or less, and those places were part of Ukraine. But like on 2014, they like were like taken from by Russians from Ukraine, and there weren't so many like fights going on at that time. It was quite easy for Russia to get that part of the country under control. So first thing, like, it won't be Crimea, so it will be more difficult, as you may notice from the news, for Russians to be able to conquer Ukraine. There are like several scenarios that are possible. Well, scenario number one is the Chechnya like scenario. This is all about complete destruction and annihilation of the country. Something similar happened some years ago in Chechnya. It's like a smaller country, a smaller region than Ukraine. Well, in that case, there was also the need to find a very strong man that was able to like cultivate Russian interest and being able like to impose its authority on the population. So in my opinion, this scenario is kind of impossible for like several reasons. Well, first of all, resistance Ukrainians have proven very resilient. So there could be complete destruction, but it will be very difficult for Russians, in my opinion. Then the country is bigger. So Ukraine is far bigger than Chechnya. So it's more difficult like to reign and like exercise power on such a big country. It's kind of huge. And also, if you consider population, the population of Ukraine is far bigger than the Chechenian one. Considering its size, I just want to remind you that Ukraine is bigger than France, just to give you like an example and an idea of how huge is this country. Then in Chechnya, like reading throughout the news, I saw that there was also like a theme about like local population and Russians unite against Muslims. So in this case, there was also a possibility to have a theme, an idea, a concept to fight for together. So local populations and Russia against something or someone else. This is a theme of unity, and this helped Russians a lot, in my opinion. So this is the first scenario. Chechnya, not very likely, in my opinion, but it could happen. So just wanted to present you. Second scenario, Belarus. It's nearly impossible, in my opinion, even if this was like maybe this was the like initial plan for Russia. So having a Belarus-like country in Ukraine means that there is like a Pacific state near Russia with a pro-Russian government that like can help Russia for making possible their interests, and and then also like having a friendly country near Russia. They can have Russians in whatever. Just see like the how Belarus it's helping Russia nowadays, how Belarus helped Russia in the past. Just thinking about like the military maneuvers, like in a few months ago, a few weeks ago, before like the real invasion. In my opinion, here it's really impossible to have this scenario realized, and why it's just simple because like Ukraine and Ukrainians were like so resilient against the invasion. In my opinion, considering also the size of this country, it's kind of impossible to have this scenario realized. So with this second scenario, my opinion, very unlikely, nearly impossible. The first one is more like possible, not so much, but it's more possible. Third scenario, that is Georgia, like in the past, few years ago, like there was a creation of a ghost area within another country. So like you are in Georgia and like some areas have become like ghost towns, ghost areas. In my opinion, it's quite unlikely because like that area was so small compared to the overall Ukraine territory. And you have also, in my opinion, to consider how Ukrainians are determined to defend their homes. They are proving this. Well, some Ukrainians are leaving the country, of course. It's in the news. In Europe, they are experiencing it, especially in Poland and the nearest country to Ukraine. On the other side, many Ukrainians, the majority, have decided to stay at home, at their home, and defend their country. So this scenario of like creating like some ghost areas, it's quite impossible. Maybe some areas near Russia, that there could be speculation about that, but in my opinion, it's very difficult to see the overall Ukrainian country to be reduced at the ghost area. Maybe some areas this could happen, but it's really unlikely to have this scenario in the overall country, at least in my opinion, of course. Then the fourth scenario, and in my opinion, the most likely one, it's the creation of a new country completely destroyed by bombs. Maybe just you may notice, like for example, Aleppo, it was like completely bombed and destroyed. I mean, this is really a bad scenario, but we are seeing like that this is happening. This could happen in the future, like complete destruction. This is what war is about. It's like really sad, but that's it. That's like reality. This is a bad scenario, especially like for the civil population of Ukraine. In this case, in my opinion, it's war. There are not winners and only losers. This is really a bad scenario. It's more likely than the two other ones. But if the war goes on for like quite a long time, I see this scenario like that could be very likely. And that's sad. That's really sad. And then, last but not least, well, thank you for listening to me for such a long time. This is a bonus scenario, and so it's the fifth one, but it's a bonus one for the ones that have decided like to follow this video / podcast. Bonus scenario, it's about the black swan scenario, so something that it's nearly impossible. very unlikely to happen. And they're like two scenarios in one. First aspect, maybe Putin could be removed and a peace treaty is signed by a substitute of Putin or Russians, whatever. Just a peace treaty is signed. This is like very unlikely because this means that Putin is removed, very unlikely, and that another person or another group of people decides to put the end of this war, like putting Russia in a bad situation, in my opinion, and it will be like a great loss for Russia itself. And in my opinion, it will be very complicated for Russian politicians to present this at home like a victory. It's kind of nearly impossible. So this is very unlikely because this is all about politics and war, and it's very unlikely, nearly impossible. I'll give it 0.00001%. And then another scenario, possible scenario, it's that Putin and so Russia with Putin still in Russia, not removed, and the Western world, so Europe, the US, and other countries that have helped, like Ukraine. So these two groups are able to find an equilibrium, are able to find a peace, are able to sign a peace treaty. And in this case, it will be very complicated to present this at home because everyone has to present their citizens the situation as a victory. But it is not impossible because, of course, you can see several aspects, several things in one situation. Maybe Europeans can say we won't buy so much gas from Russia in the future, and they have stopped the war. Maybe Russia can obtain some territories that they are interested in, or they can fulfill at least partially their goals. Ukraine can be a neutral state and it can have still its sovereignty. And so Ukraine, Russia, and Western countries could find an equilibrium. This is not so likely. It's kind of unlikely, of course, because the situation is very complicated and it's very difficult to find out an equilibrium. And presenting a peace treaty, because that is what we are talking about here, as a victory its own. But of course it's possible, and diplomacy is very important. Diplomacy is going on also nowadays when the conflict is so strong, and it seems also nearly impossible to stop it. So thank you very much for listening. This is about the scenarios that I think will be most likely for Ukraine. Thank you very much for listening. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. And thank you very much again. Bye.